Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Also streaming live on YouTube. The Fan KLGN is where you can find us, watch our shows, and watch past episodes of the Full Court Press. You can also find past episodes on our podcast feed. Find that at 1069thefan.com or the mobile app, or pretty much wherever you get your podcast. Just search for the Full Court Press. Probably also our names, Jason Walker, Eric Frandsen. There are a couple of shows called the Full Court Press, but you got to make sure you find the best one.
Yeah, one that focuses on Utah State stuff.
Yeah, Utah State Aggies. Instead of, I think there's another Full Court Press show that hosted Jared Calhoun back when he was Utah State's head coach, but you got to find the one that focuses on the Aggies all the time. And we've got Aggie content for today. Utah State football, Utah State basketball, a little bit of Pac-12 as well, and Pick 6. And as a quick note, we will have a shortened show. And we're probably not going to go much longer, if at all, on the live stream. There's content for today, but we're not overflowing with content. And so we'll save some of any other potential other topics for Friday. The Utah Mammoth are playing today their regular season finale. They moved the game up. We would have had a longer show if they had moved it up by about a half an hour, I believe. So we'll hand it over to the Utah Mammoth Radio Network at 5 o'clock. We'll basically have the first hour.
Yep.
And then we'll hand it over to them.
They play St. Louis tonight?
Yeah, I believe so. The St. Louis Blues. It'll be the regular season finale. I don't think the Mammoth are playing for any seeding or really anything.
Yeah, their position is locked up. So they're set. They know who they're going to face.
Yeah.
And they know their position. So tonight's about momentum, I guess.
Yeah, momentum.
Making sure guys stay healthy too.
They might rest a few key players. We'll see. But yeah, we'll be handing it over for them for the regular season finale, the end of the second regular season in franchise history, but not the end of the season overall. They've got at least 4 more games after this guaranteed.
And I know there's been some disputes with some cable providers. It's been hard to watch some Mammoth games recently, but tonight's game is on ESPN, so you should be able to see the team there.
Yeah,
because that channel 16 sometimes is not available, depending on who you have for your cable provider. But it's on ESPN tonight, so you won't have the hometown broadcast, but you will have a national broadcast, which will be fun.
Yeah, it's always fun to have those. So let's get into our...
Of course, the hometown broadcast can be heard here still.
That's true. You can hear the radio broadcasts here on The Fan.
Mike Folta and friends,
yeah,
starting at 5 o'clock right here on The Fan.
That's why we hand it over to them so they can provide you these radio broadcasts.
Yes.
So let's get into our initial topics here. Eric, you had a chance to go to Utah State practice, which they held outside today, despite what the weather is. Oh, it actually stopped snowing. I looked outside. I was expecting to see the snowflakes.
No, it's still snowing.
Is it still?
It's just very light.
Like tiny snowflakes every now and again. But earlier it was snowing sideways.
It was coming down. Yeah. So this morning, yesterday when I made the request, Doug Hoffman, sports information director at Utah State, said, I'll let you know in the morning where they'll be and what time to be there, because we knew there was a storm coming through.
Yeah.
And so at about 9:30, 10 o'clock, I shoot him a text like, where are we at? Like, what's our time and location today? And he says, it's going to be outside at the stadium. Be there at 11:50. Like, it's coming down. Okay, let's go. But you know what? Players have to play in this kind of stuff in the fall, especially when you get into the late fall. This stuff happens. So it's good for them and important for them to do that. And I asked some of the coaches about that, actually.
Yeah. So you got to interview the defensive line coach, Donte Wilkins, and the wide receiver coach, Skyler Ridley.
Okay. Yep.
Let's start with Donte. And he's the one where you get the snow in the background. You can see it coming down. So let's hear
unprotected. Yeah. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see we're in a flurry. Really interesting stuff he has to say about this year's team versus last year's team, and basically telling his guys who stuck around, I'm recruiting over you, so you have to come and work hard to still get a chance. So it's an interesting mental game that they're playing, but he explains why he does that.
Okay, Donte Wilkins, defensive line coach for Utah State. You guys are wrapping things up here in the spring, doing it in the snow today. How was practice in the snow today?
Great. It's a great opportunity for our guys to attack. They get the opportunity to come out here when it's cold. It's freezing cold. I mean, right now my toes are done, but you can't allow that to get in the way of the process of getting better on a day-to-day basis. And I thought our guys brought energy, and most importantly, they stuck to their process throughout the day.
How would you assess spring overall now? You guys are just about done. You got your spring showcase on Saturday, but how would you assess how things have gone this year?
I think the best way to put it is just how I did. It's been a process-oriented spring. We're focused on first and second down. We're focused on red zone. We're focused on backed up. We're just going through the process and understand how can we put this in context of an actual game that's going to come in the fall. And everybody is just focused on the fundamentals day after day, play after play. Touchdown score, good. We're coming back to the ball. TFL, good. We're coming back to the ball. So it's all about just staying focused in that process.
Last year, not very many guys understood what you guys were going to ask of them in the spring. This year, there's a good chunk of guys who are back, and they've been through it. How far ahead are you this year compared to where you were a year ago, or is it just it's a different set of guys, it's a different year, it's different circumstances?
We've still added new guys to the program, and so because of that, that's where we get to lean on those guys who did return. And so for me, I get to lean on Carson, Tyree, Joshua Papu, Tavita Tua, guys who were in the room from a year ago who are now coming back. And then I bring in guys. I told those guys straight up in January, I'm going to bring in guys who I think are better than you. That's my job. And every single day they've just attacked and they've brought those guys along. Because skill may be better, but in order for you to thrive in this program, your heart and mind has to be captured on a day-to-day basis, and their will has to be there. And so our guys that were here previously truly drove the culture every single day this spring. We've seen lots of great player leadership being brought out on a day-to-day basis. And so, just blessed to have those guys in our program who want to be here.
Last year, well, in most years, or last several years, you kind of gone through spring knowing there's another portal window and there's some uncertainty whether guys are going to stick around or not, or if you need to go find new guys. You haven't had that this year. How's that changed how you've approached spring practices?
For me, I haven't really changed anything. I'm just trying to make sure the guys that are here are bought in. The guys that are here understand what we want at a high level and understand that the expectations will not fade. And so, just think the thing with the spring portal window is it just allowed them another opportunity to choose whether they wanted to be into the program or not, or they wanted to leave. And so because we don't have that, we know who's on our team. We don't have to worry about who's leaving or who's coming or who we're getting ready for. Now we have some summer guys who still have to show up because of classes and things of that nature. But it's really just been focused on the fundamentals. It doesn't matter if it's cover 3, cover 4, cover 2. Fundamentals are fundamentals, and they're going to show up on film.
There's a new offensive play caller on the other side of you guys. What are you seeing so far from Robert and and what you guys have to go up against in practice every day?
Really, when you have Coach Anai back in the building, it's a mindset thing. The wisdom that he brings, the play calling experience that he brings, you just know that the mindset of the whole offensive line, quarterback, receivers, tight ends, running backs, their mindset is going to be at a higher level. And that's the thing that we've been going against on a day-to-day basis, is knowing that he's going to challenge his unit every single day that's going to push our defensive.
And then on Saturday, spring showcase, what can fans expect to see when you guys take the field?
Work. Our guys are going to work. They are. It's going to be fun. Just like out here today. It was snowing out here today. Guys are jumping up and down, snow angels, jumping jacks. It's going to be fun. And that's the thing that I appreciate about this team, is that they truly find fun in the process.
Donte Wilkins, I'll let you go warm up your toes. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So yeah, Donte Wilkins, Utah State's defensive line coach. Apparently cold toes.
Yeah, there was plenty of snow on the field. I posted a picture earlier today on X. It was coming down. Like it was the field was covered. It wasn't just kind of a light stuff that you run through. Like it was coming down. Like they were in the mix of it, which is good. You want to be a hardy football team, you got to play through this kind of stuff. You don't want to be soft. Like, oh, it's kind of cold today, or we might see some rain or some snow. We better go to the indoor. Nah, you got to be tough. You got to understand how to play in these kinds of elements, because you're going to have a game where this happens.
Yeah.
And you want to be the team that's prepared. Like, that doesn't bother us. We've done this.
Yeah. It's supposed to be the advantage. Like, you're supposed to be the team that's capable of playing in cold weather. Like, that was, this narrative goes back with NFL teams. You
right.
know,
Green
the
Bay,
notion
Chicago.
of, all these teams that play outside in the frozen tundra versus teams that play in domes. And apparently,
First time Miami goes north in the playoffs in January, they're like,
it's like,
they can't do
holy
it.
cow, it's cold.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that explains why Peyton Manning always struggled sometimes in the playoffs, especially against the Patriots at times. But that's something that, and maybe that narrative can get over exaggerated, playing in the weather. But hey, if there's some kind of advantage, might as well be used to it.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too, hearing him talk about the guys who came back this year on that defensive front and how he's relying on them to know what's expected of them, to understand what Coach Mendenhall asks of his guys. But he also told them, my job is to recruit players who are better than you. But that doesn't mean that you don't still have a chance to work hard and still have a place to play. So he's encouraging them. He's kind of poking them along. You guys got to fight. You still got to play hard. You got to practice hard. You still got to come and bring it every week if you want to play. Because that's the mentality they want to instill in their football team.
That's the way that, as Coach Wilkins said, that's his job. His job isn't to, I'm going to go out and find guys that are not as good. I'm going to bring in depth guys. That's not the way you should be recruiting. Now, maybe that's the only kind of players you can get sometimes in some situations, because maybe there are players who don't want to transfer to where there's a competition. But if that's the case with those players, maybe you don't necessarily want them. You want guys who can compete. And it's why I've always been bothered by, and I was kind of bothered by the narrative that popped up a few years ago when Jason Shelley was brought in at quarterback and Henry Columbia leaves. And it's why would you bring in a guy who can be a starting quarterback when you already have a potentially established starter? And it's because that's your job. If
you have a chance to bring in someone who's better, you bring in someone who's better.
Yeah, and if a quarterback is too scared of competition that they leave, then I don't want to throw shots at anybody, but
you don't want a team that's soft.
Yeah.
You want a team that wants to fight for their chance to play and to prove that they have value on the field. And nothing's guaranteed, nothing's given.
Yeah, you look at a guy like Bryson Barnes. That was the guy who was willing to compete with anybody. Didn't get the starting job until his final year of college, and look what kind of a man that made him.
Right, made him a more refined quarterback in the process of doing that,
and a tough as nails competitor too.
Yes.
So let's look at our other interview that we've got here. Eric, you also we had a chance to...
Yeah, wide receiver coach Skyler Ridley. First time I've visited with him. I spoke with Coach Wilkins last year, and I've enjoyed my conversations with him. This was my first interaction with Skyler Ridley.
Was he new this year, or was he here last year? I thought he was here last year, but I couldn't...
I asked questions to him as if he were here. He was here last year, but we'll need to double check on that. In fact, actually, he made a reference to... when he was being recruited to come here, Coach and I was already in the process of coming here. So maybe this was only his first year.
I'm suddenly spacing the name of the last coordinator.
Shame on me for not double checking that before I went to the interview, because I asked him questions as if he was here last year.
So I'm pretty sure the old OC was also the wide receivers coach. That's what made me think that maybe Skyler Ridley wasn't a second-year addition. I'm going to go look up his profile.
Well, he did a really good job of answering questions that he had no business answering. But
he's in his first season as wide receivers coach.
Well, shame on me. So
that's okay. Yesterday I forgot.
Was very nice.
I forgot somebody who was already graduated. And I did this with why am I remembering last year's offensive coordinator, McGivern.
Kevin McGivern.
I was interviewing him, and then I was asking about coming to Utah State, and his thoughts was oh yeah, I was here 10 years ago. I was oh, fetch. So I've done the exact same thing.
Yeah, well, so he's approaching the wide receivers with a fresh set of eyes, even though I asked him about guys last year. But there is some returning experience and some guys that have been around that had some opportunities last year, very limited, mostly in practices. But there's a lot of questions about that wide receiver room, about do they have versatility? Do they have guys that can realistically play the various positions for wide receiver, and also his familiarity with Robert Anae and folding right into his offensive system?
Yeah, so let's hear from first-year head wide receivers coach Skyler Ridley.
Skyler Ridley, Utah State wide receivers coach, and you guys are wrapping up spring practices, and I guess just first assessments of how spring has gone for you guys.
Yeah, I think the emphasis of getting better every day, development, obviously when you bring in a bunch of new guys, making sure that culture alignment is strong. And I think we've done a really good job at those things. As far as efficiency and execution, it's getting better every day. So excited what we're doing and where we're going, and can't wait to get to the fall.
Last year there were a lot of unknowns about the wide receiver core generally, but there were guys that balled out and had great seasons. You come in another season where there's uncertainties because guys graduated or leave or whatever. I mean, Anthony Garcia is back. Let's first talk about him and just what that means for you, kind of having somebody with that experience back in that room and helping the other guys that are kind of new here.
Yeah, AG's unique because he comes from a quarterback background, and guys that I've worked with in the past, and it's the same with him. He sees the game like a quarterback, and so he's been able to develop really quickly. He's only been playing the position for a year. So from what he was able to accomplish in first year playing the position and the progress through spring, we're really excited about the weapon he's going to be for us this fall. But I think the formula matches what they were able to do last year. We were able to bring in some guys with some playing experience, but also guys that have high talent, just haven't been given the right opportunity. And so guys like Rex Haynes and Eli Wood who are coming in, we're expecting big things from them. But the guys who are here, Ty Olson, Nico Boncor, that were freshmen last year, they've seen a ton of growth through the opportunities that spring's given them. So we're excited about the group, the development, the depth, the competition. But yeah, definitely AG leads that as being a guy who's played some valuable reps last year, and he's doing a good job leading the group.
Demick Starling, another guy that looked like he was going to be a promising prospect, then injuries kind of set him back. Kind of how is he progressing? Is he someone that's going to be available in the fall?
Yeah, he's going to be electric. I know last year going into fall camp he was playing really well. Unfortunate injury. Through spring he's been moving laterally, running straight line, and man, when we tested in the spring, even coming off the ACL, he was at the top of the leaderboard as far as highest speeds on the team. So we can't wait to get him back. Through spring we were being smart with just his progress, but he's going to be a guy too that's definitely, if you're an Aggie fan, you got to get to know.
Robert and I, new play caller here, certainly well experienced with Coach Bronco Mendenhall. But what's your connection with him, and what are you seeing with your relationship with him?
Yeah. I mean, when Coach and I was offered the position, and I was at the same time I was being hired, Coach Mendenhall said, "Hey, you're going to like the guy I'm bringing in," and I played for Coach and I. So he was my offensive coordinator way back in 2013, and even my first couple years as a player for Coach Mendenhall at BYU. But really smooth transition that way because of the experience as a player in the system. And it's the same with the other guys on the offensive staff. Most of us were former players, so we played in the system under his leadership, and so it's been fun to be in the room with a group of guys that come from similar backgrounds, and it's been able to help us just accelerate the process of transition.
Speaking of transition, last year there was a lot of new guys, new system. Not very many players were familiar with Bronco and his style. This year, there's quite a few guys who are back. They understand that. Do you feel like things are ahead now of where they were maybe a year ago, or things are progressing so far through spring that do you feel like you're ahead of where you need to be or want to be?
Yeah, I think it's really different, and that's what we've noticed as a coaching staff. We have a lot more guys back. So you got this core that understands the culture and the foundation of the program, which has helped bring along the new guys a lot faster. So very noticeable from where we were at last year this time to being in spring and transitioning into our summer workouts. So that's been a huge advantage for us to have those guys return and kind of set the tone for our newcomers.
A lot of snow today in practice. How does that affect your group, and how do you feel like that maybe helps them for what they may run into when you get into the heart of the deep end of the fall schedule later on?
Yeah, the nice thing about us having a practice like we did today is the other teams in our conference, they don't face the elements this time of year like we do. And so when it comes to the end of the season, you're in critical games, critical moments, really important for our guys to be out here to learn to catch, to run, block when there's snow on the ground. And when we believe we're a cold weather team, that's an advantage for us. And I thought the guys handled it really well today. And we caught the ball well, we threw the ball well, we were effective and efficient in the situational stuff. So proud of the guys how they handled it, but that's the expectation. When you play in Logan and in Cache Valley, man, you expect to be really good when it gets cold and snow on the ground.
Saturday is the spring showcase. what can fans expect to see when they come out and see you guys?
Yeah, I think you're going to see chemistry that you may not see in other programs. As far as the quarterbacks and the receiver, they've spent a lot of time together, and not just them, but the entire offensive side of the football. They're in the offices every afternoon, rewatching even after we watch with them, and that's paid huge dividends. And we've been really explosive through spring practices so far. And when we talk about the expectation for number of explosive plays per the number of plays we're running, we're meeting that mark almost every day. And that's both in the run game and the pass game, and what our quarterbacks are able to do when plays break down. So we're excited about the weapons we have, the guys who are developing and growing, and I hope the fans have a ton of fun with us on Saturday.
Well, best of luck on Saturday and have fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
There he is, Skyler Ridley. And, it's interesting. When I've asked the different coaches about what can fans expect when they come on Saturday for the spring showcase, I've heard, guys are working hard and physical. And then I've heard, we're going to be explosive. And then I've heard, we're going to be aggressive. And then you're going to see a brotherhood. Like, everybody has a different thing that stands out to them, what they've observed in their own little sphere of football, and how they're projecting what fans will see on Saturday at the spring showcase, which means to me, like, there are a lot of aspects of this team that's kind of exciting to see how it's coming together. Now, there's still some big question marks on this team, but one of the other things I've also heard I've tried to be consistent about how do you compare this team this year to what you saw last year, for a lot of different reasons. There's so many new guys last year. They didn't know Coach Mendenhall. It was a totally different mindset and approach to practices. This year, there's a good chunk of those guys who are back. They understand what's expected of them, so are they further ahead because of that? But you also still mix in a lot of new guys at the same time. But the coaches have almost universally replied that they feel like they're further ahead, and they really like their depth. They really feel like they have a lot more significant depth this year than where they felt a year ago. And there's still, some major questions to be answered, but this team, how they're progressing, how they've progressed at the end of last season, rolling that into this, and seeing the depth that they were able to develop through recruiting and just guys who were coming back, those are all really good signs, Jason, for what this football team could look like in 2026.
Yeah, especially the depth, because that's something that's at times hurt the Aggies. Is as the season goes along, guys get injured, and the Aggies have been hit by the injury bug a little bit worse than some teams. They don't have the depth, and so you got to be able to have that this upcoming season. Hopefully, we'll see if that pans out. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll dive into Utah State basketball. Some news that we're waiting on, and a little bit of analysis of some players that are now officially signing with Utah State, though they were known about before.
The official roster is filling out.
Yeah, the official roster is filling out. We'll get to that next here on the Full Court Press. Ready to shake things up, Cache Valley? Live Young Rentals is now open at Young Power Sports. Street bikes, side-by-sides, and watercraft for rental. Call 435-755-7111. Again, that's 435-755-7111. So you've got our Young Power Sports of Logan text line. As they got their Live Young Rentals. They also sponsor our text line. Have a few texts coming in. This will help us transition a little bit into our next topic, though. First, 8968 saying, "Oh, good, it's baseball weather in Cache Valley." And it's got snow. It's stuck, but now it's already kind of melting. Mostly because it was already kind of wet when it began snowing, and it'll warm up. So the snow is probably not going to last on the ground much further than tonight or tomorrow. But still, we got like a full day of snowing.
Yes.
So crazy stuff. And then 2444 saying, "Honestly, I'm not as disappointed about the news of Adlin Elmy not returning as I thought I would be during the season. Yes, he is very talented and a versatile player. He's also very inconsistent, and I'm confident that we'll be just fine with our returners and replacements. It will be interesting to see what kind of player he ends up developing into, though." Yeah, so for those of you who missed it, Adlin Elamine has committed to the University of Cincinnati. About a half hour ago, as we began the show, he sent out the "thank you, I'm leaving," post on his social media. His commitment was announced earlier this morning, so it was known that he was leaving before he sent this out. I'll be honest, you can go read it on his social media yourself. It is a fairly typical "that being said" type message. But yeah, he was here. He did a lot of things. I don't want to downplay it too much because the Aggies are going to miss Adlin Elamine. Or at least it'll take a pretty good recruiting cycle for them to not miss him, I guess I should say. Because technically every single player is replaceable to some degree. But that's so long as you can replace them with somebody good enough. That's usually the trick. And so Utah State has to bring in quality players to replace Adlin Elamine or develop someone like Kingston Tosi is the first player that comes to mind that can replace what Adlin Elamine was able to do. Bring length on the wing, versatility at that power forward position, one of the hardest places to bring versatility because you're a player who has to be able to rebound and get the dirty work done in the paint and be able to have a perimeter game and usually have to be able to shoot the three-pointer as well. That is a hard combination of skills, to find in players. Usually you can find players who can play inside or players who can play on the perimeter, but usually not a combination of both. And while Adlin Elamine wasn't perfect at doing both, there were games where he disappeared in one factor or the other. But then the games where he brought it in all areas of the court, he was one of Utah State's most impactful and important players. But I do understand the worries about consistency, and we'll see how he handles the Big 12 because that's just a bigger caliber of athlete that he's going to be facing on day in and day out. But part of Adlin Elamine's appeal was his potential. As I kept saying throughout the season, that's the worst version of Adlin Elamine and Elijah Perriman you were going to see. So his biggest, strength was what he could become, not just in what he did last year.
Yeah, he was a great player, and he really developed. And some people, it's kind of funny when these things happen. Suddenly everybody goes back and tries to revise history. Oh, well, he disappeared for half the season, so he really wasn't worth what they were going to try to pay him. It's like, come on. If he would have stayed, you would have been over the moon because he's a great young player, and he's got length and versatility and no fear. And he had a freshman slump. Almost every freshman does, but he came out of it and he was a super impactful player. I would have loved to have him back in Utah State in an Aggie uniform. I think we all would. I'm not surprised that he ends up in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised that it took so long for him to commit, which may indicate that Utah State was really making a run to try to keep him. I don't know if it was between Cincinnati and maybe some other P4 program, and that's why he was settling on things. But it makes a lot of sense that he would go there. He has a bigger opportunity with the coach he's familiar with. So I get it. It's hard to keep a guy like that, especially who's not from around here and has other ties that help anchor him here. But let's not try to revise history, and I'll act like we're happy to see this guy walk.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what 2444 was
No.
getting at, because obviously he's.
But I have seen some on social media.
Yeah.
And in other places. And it's like, no, look, guys, you would have been overjoyed if this guy decided to stick around. You would be like, my gosh, they're going to the Sweet 16 now with Adlin Elamine.
And so, so Utah State has work to do to replace Adlin Elamine.
Yes.
9-15 asking, what are the odds Elamine hits the portal next or the next year or the year after that and comes back to USU? Pretty small.
Slim. I think their odds are still high that he enters the portal next year.
Yeah.
Assume every player is going to be in the portal next year.
Yeah, that's good.
If he has eligibility, he's going to be in the portal.
If he's a star, he could be in the portal. If he has a year where he struggles, he could be in the portal. If he has a middling year, he could be in the portal. Like, that's just the way it is these days.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that he felt welcomed here. I think he felt he really enjoyed the community. He enjoyed his place on this team and playing in the Spectrum. So it's not like I think that he felt burned and like he had to get out of here. So is there a chance that he could come back? Yeah, there's always a chance, but it'd be really slim.
Yeah, there's just a lot of factors in potential paths that everyone can end up taking at Utah State, and with Adlin Elamine and his journey at Cincinnati now, I would consider it slim. Watch Adlin Elamine from afar if you want, or put him out of your thoughts if you want. However you handle Aggies when they leave, whether you watch them or forget about them. You go by your usual methods, but don't start, assuming that he's going to potentially come back. Like, could it happen? Yeah, but I wouldn't consider that among the more likely scenarios. Utah State did have some news as far as players coming in, or I guess like officially.
Officially official.
Yeah, officially official, as we've been asked about Jax Allen, who was part of the 2025 signing class for Utah State basketball, but went on a mission. He has since returned from that mission. Apparently spent the spring semester at Snow College. I saw some posts about him spending the spring with their program.
Coach is like, hey, best of luck on your next step.
And I don't think there was any indication like he was going to play there. I think it was just that was part of his training program. His older brother went to Snow College.
Yeah.
So obviously there was a relationship there, but I'd kind of been waiting to put it on my transfer tracker, among other things, to note that Jax Allen would officially be coming to Utah State, even though we all knew he was home. But the official announcement from the Aggies came about 4 hours ago, right around lunchtime, as Jax Allen, who's now listed at 6'5", I'd seen him listed around 6'3", 6'4", but apparently the same height as his older brother. Got to watch a little bit of film. I finally finished my Will Hornseth breakdown. You can go see that on Cache Valley Daily. So I got to turn my attention toward some of these newer signings. I watched a little bit more of Sean Feltz, a little bit of Jordan Boyd, and a little bit of Jax Allen as well. And I'll say this, as I watched him with Orem, his role was very much more on the range of a shooting guard or a wing. He wasn't necessarily a primary ball handler. At least he wasn't acting in that role in the game I watched. Could he perform that role? I'd have to watch a lot more film to get an idea on that. But he came across much more as an off-ball wing. Was a good shooter. One of the things I actually really liked him, and this is something that Drake Allen was good at, was just his defense. It stood out to me. Now, mind you, a lot of high school players, like when you're going back and looking at their film in high school and they're getting recruited to college, the thing you do have to keep in mind is that these guys are oftentimes the best athlete on the court. Especially when they're playing like at a public school. They're usually going to be the best athlete on the court, and so you kind of have to take that into account. You have to look beyond, like, do they make a flashy block? Well, like, of course, the 6'5" guy who's taller and more athletic than the other team's center, of course he's going to make a flashy block every now and again. You want to look at defensive intensity, discipline on defense. And that was something that stuck out to me about Jax Allen was I really liked, and this is mostly early impressions. I have not watched like a ton of film. Not as much as I was able to watch about Will Hornseth over the last week or so. But I liked Jax Allen's defense. Offense, there's some things like he's a good shooter. That was something that Drake struggled a little bit with, was his outside shooting. Jax Allen looks to be an athletic player with a good shot. And so he's a player that could come in. I don't know if he'll come in and have an immediate role. We'll see. It's going to depend on who else the Aggies bring in. But if my impressions of him being an off-ball guard are correct, that is a stacked position group for the Aggies right now. You have Mason Falslev, obviously at the top. You have a talented redshirt freshman in Braden Bowe. You have another recruit at that position, Jordan Boyd, who is a really athletic guard. And so there's a lot of competition there. And that's setting aside any potential other high school signings or transfer portal commits that are going to be coming in for the Aggies. So I'd be surprised if Jax Allen plays year one. He will probably end up redshirting, but we'll see. I've been surprised before. I thought Jordy Barnes was going to redshirt, and I was completely wrong about it.
Yeah.
So we'll see exactly how it goes.
Yeah, because it depends on what the situation looks like with the players. If like Jordy Barnes' example, they couldn't afford to keep him on the bench. Like they needed to play him because Drake was not quite game ready. He wasn't quite ready for the spotlight at that level, and needed some time to ramp up to being ready at that level.
Yeah.
And then last year he was
there.
fantastic
last year.
Yeah. So Jax helps with the guard line. Utah State needs a few more guards and other guys on the wing. But the roster is starting to fill out for Coach Jacobson.
Yeah. We got to take a break. We got a few more texts rolling in on the Young Power Sports with Logan text line. A reminder, a shortened show, so we're not going to be able to go much longer before we hand off to the Utah Mammoth Radio Network. But we'll be back coming up next with more Aggie basketball talk here on the Full Court Press.
Mountain Valley Heating and Air is offering $25 carbon monoxide home safety inspections. As you make your family safer, every dollar helps more families in need. Receive a complete HVAC system for free during their Feel the Love Heating and Air Conditioning giveaway. Just go to mtnvalleyhvac.com, nominate a family in need, or schedule your own safety inspection.
So we've got a few texts rolling in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. 4781, texting in saying it is sad to see Adlin leave as he's going to have a harder time in the Big 12. Lots of big stars in that conference that he's going to have to battle with, and if he isn't up for the task, it'll hurt his chances with the pros. That's what happened with Great Osibor.
Yeah,
pretty much
true.
ruined his NBA chances by going and having a mediocre year in the Big Ten as opposed to what would have been an All-American caliber year at Utah State.
Yeah, he was getting attention. He was a guy that was playing awesome, getting a lot of love, and goes to Washington and disappears. Like no one saw what happened to him, and so I don't know that we can predict the same thing with Adlan, but it can happen. It does happen.
I think what helps with Adlan is he's got more tools for his position than Osibor did. Osibor was an undersized center. Adlan is an appropriately sized power forward. Well, he's 185 pounds.
Oversized wing.
Yeah. Well, the only thing he's missing is about 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Great Osibor needed, to be 3 inches taller.
Right.
That was his. He had literally everything except for the height because he had wingspan. He had like a 7'2" wingspan or something like that. But he was 6'8". Yeah. So, but on the text line 5662, talking about Adlan Elmine, more of a chance he hits the first round of the draft next year. Good for him. Then saying the new 5 years to play 5 could go into effect this summer, couldn't it? Meaning no more redshirting. That's possible.
It's possible. They continue to discuss it.
It's being discussed. It's being thought of. They're going.
The challenge
over
they're trying to figure out is if we implement it, what happens to those seniors who have technically run out of their eligibility, but now all of a sudden there's a 5th year, but they played 4 years. You'd have to grant them that 5th year, so you'd have kind of a balloon number of seniors.
I think
college.
What they would need to do is say that it only applies to incoming players from this year on, or wherever you want to set the cutoff.
So it's kind of a rolling thing that just gets implemented.
Let's say nobody gets grandfathered into the new system. There are players who are based on the old system and players based on the new system. No, just randomly giving a bunch of players an extra year to say, look, if you came under the old system, that's how it is, and we can deal with that. That would the downside of that though. It would mean 3 or 4 more years of figuring out waivers and all this other stuff. So there is potentially a downside to that. Like there is a world in which you would maybe want to just grandfather everyone in, and if 1 year's senior class just randomly gets an extra year, I guess. But it is a complex issue with downsides and upsides to both directions, whether grandfather a bunch of people in or, basically have a split essentially of incoming versus players who are already here.
Yeah.
So
tricky.
Yeah. More recruiting news for Utah State. Xavier Zenz, the recruit that was at one point committed to Northern Iowa, who decommitted from there when Ben Jacobson came over to Utah State, took visits with Utah State, Wisconsin, and Illinois. He was supposed to announce his commitment on Tuesday. Then he was supposed to announce his commitment this evening, although another update today says he's going to announce his commitment tomorrow. So he's perfectly ready for college right now. I can tell you right now, he is procrastinator.
He's putting it off, delaying the assignment.
Yeah. Let's see. It was 8632 though, noting Trilly Donovan. If not aware of him, he's insider. I don't know what to describe him. He's basically chronically online and therefore ends up with a bunch of information. But he's predicting that Xavier Zenz is going to Illinois for whatever that is worth. 5452. I think he texted this in right as I mentioned it, saying Zenz plans to announce his commitment tomorrow. Keeps getting pushed back. And it's probably going to get pushed back again. He'll probably say, I'm going to announce it Saturday. I'm going to announce it Monday. we'll see if we ever actually get a commitment, or Xavier Zenz is going to be in October saying, I'll announce my commitment soon.
Well, the Aggies must be still making a run at him and trying to make their case to have him be a part of their program.
Well, they have a good case. I think, obviously Illinois is a Final Four team. It leaves a pretty big impression when you go on a recruiting visit and you get to hold a Final Four trophy.
Yeah.
And, being a program like Illinois, that's something that really stands out to you, and the potential for development and all that. Whereas with Utah State, the promise is you're going to play right away. That's the main thing Utah State has, is you're going to play right away, you have a chance to be a star, although even then it's not guaranteed.
No.
Because a lot of freshmen tend to struggle to have big impacts year one. He's not going to be a star year one at Utah State, or at least not likely. It's always possible. And so honestly, it might be similar to Illinois. He'll play bench role at Illinois. He'll play bench role at Utah State, maybe start. So it's hard to figure out, and it's also what does he prioritize? He's probably getting more money at Illinois, and
he'll have familiarity at Utah State, familiar with Coach Ben Jacobson, who's been in the recruiting process for a long time with him. There's some players on this roster who have committed, who he is familiar with. So there are some things in Utah State's favor here.
Yeah, in that sense, it becomes relationships versus program prestige, because Utah State has a lot of the relationships. Illinois has the money and the program prestige, because they've only really been going after Zenz the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, hey, now we care about you. We ignored you when you were committing to Northern Iowa, but now that you've decommitted, we care about you so much more.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Utah State has those relationships. But as we've seen with college basketball, relationships seem to matter less and less, though they're not dead yet. If you know that Jay Call went back to New Mexico, that's a relationship that worked out positively.
He put on a do not contact tag, and he stuck around.
Yeah, stuck around. So we're going to go ahead and take another break. When we come back, we'll have Pick 6.
Yeah, on the way out, let's remind our folks about Birdie's Golf Lounge. Great place to go improve your golf swing. They've got an AI coach system. They got multiple cameras in there that can analyze your swing, analyze your velocity, over 2,000 courses that are available for you to play if you want. It's a very realistic mapping and a lot of top-of-the-line technology that they have in there. Go check that out. Early Birdies pricing available of just $129 a month with no monthly contract before opening, but usually $259 a month. So get in on that before April 30th. That's Birdie's Golf Lounge, 650 North, 870 West in Logan.
All right, so we'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press. Batteries, headlights, wiper blades, they're all in stock and on sale now at your local Napa Auto Parts. They got Chemical Guys car wash and detailing kits for only $49.99. Air fresheners, shop towels, seafoam, and more. Again, all available at your Napa Auto Parts stores. They got locations from Preston to Providence. So, Eric, we got to kind of sprint through pick six here. I don't even think we have time to play the little fun music bit. But
I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's get started, Eric. You got to pick who goes first.
I won, so I'm going first.
All right.
Sam Merrill, 3-point attempts in game 1 when Cleveland is in the playoffs. 6.5.
I'm going to go over.
Okay. I'm going to go under. Nimi Ishketa, stocks, steals plus blocks in his first game in the playoffs for the Celtics. 2.5.
I'll go under.
I'm going to go over. And then Utah shots against Las Vegas in their opening game of the NHL playoffs on Sunday. So again, Utah shots, 25.5.
I'll go over.
Okay, I'm going to go under.
All right. Then my lines, I have Utah Mammoth one, but it's about tonight's game. Over under total goals by both teams. Over under 6.5.
Ooh, I'm going to go under.
All right. I'm going to go over. Then who has more combined points, rebounds, and assists in tomorrow's play-in game? Paolo Banchero or LaMelo Ball as the Magic take on the Hornets?
I'm going to go Banchero.
All right. I'm going to go LaMelo. Sunday, 76ers Celtics is also Nimi Ishketa, but I went how many combined points and rebounds does he have?
Okay.
So not stocks, just points and rebounds. I put over under 16.5.
I'm going to take the under.
All right. I'll take the over on that one. Then, Eric, you got the tiebreaker.
Tiebreaker, Real Salt Lake. They play San Diego FC on Saturday on Apple TV. Goals by Real Salt Lake, 1.5.
I'll take the under.
I'm going to take the over.
All right, that's pick 6, and that will do it for us today. And stay tuned if you want to hear Utah Mammoth taking on the St. Louis Blues. We'll be back on Monday to recap the weekend.
We'll be back on Friday, too.
Friday, whatever.